Okay, hopefully the wind won't be too bad. I figured while I was out here working on this, I would babble, and the turkeys are going to come help too. It is kind of windy, but I've got this little fluffy thing on the mic, so I'm hoping that helps. We will see. I'm hoping we have some not quite so windy time. Yes, Mr. Turkey. Over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we can do some family pictures. It's like way past time. We have not done any family pictures, like legitimate family pictures, since 2015. So, yeah, it's time for such things. And pray for me, because hubby does not like his picture taken. Turkey, I don't know that you're going to be any help. Can you guys see her? She is like she jumped up on the door. She absolutely jumped up on the door. I have got you on a dolly. Ah, Turkey! So anyway, he doesn't like to have his picture taken, so he's always a little grumbly about it. And we kind of did get, pictures during the weddings in 2019, but, that's been a while too, so it's time. We've got grandchildren, and it's time to update things. Trying to do some of this on a door, makes for a lumpy mess in a few areas. But we're just going to go with it. Miss Turkey, your presence was not required. It was not. I've been using really old paint. Hello, darling. And it's been really lumpy, and not really liking the process of, so it is what it is. It is what it is. But I decided I needed something fun and productive. I've been wanting to paint the door forever, and I've had all kinds of ideas on what to do to paint the door. And we live out in the country. Nobody sees our door, right? And this is the back door. We use the back door as our main entrance. So definitely nobody sees the back door, except for those few people who do happen to come to visit occasionally. And we've had this place since 1999. And no, don't do that, don't do that. Must have pushed too hard. It decided to go splat all over. Probably should have brought a paintbrush out with me. We're just going to have a big green blob right there. This is the outside of the door, and it faces the south. So I'm really wondering how, sun bleached it's going to be. Our screen door is kind of a homemade DIY type thing, so it's not beautiful anyway, and there's a lot of wood, so it'll be protected from the sun for the most part. But I'm really curious as to how this paint is going to, once I get done with the line art on it, I'm going to do a clear coat, just a spray paint clear coat on it. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing here or not. Anyway, the Manor Manor is on its way to come visit. By the time I post this video, they may be here. I don't know when I'll get around to posting it, if it sounds okay. So, in my craziness to try to get ready for 14 extra people visiting our home, and they're bringing a camper, so they're going to have, their own facilities and stuff. But, they'll be in and out of the house. So I've been trying to unaccumulate some of my clutter or rehome some of my clutter in order to make room. Flies are trying to eat me. I may have to go get a chair too, because my back is not going to handle this bending over for very long. So the door was filthy because it gets used a lot, and really needing some paint. Yeah, I think maybe that's kind of showing up for you. I don't usually share my creative process online. I've blogged a few of my projects through the years, and I've shared on Facebook, like before and after pictures of things that I've done. Let's face it, it's a 100-year-old farmhouse, and most of the stuff that we have is also old. I hate to use the word antique for our stuff because, I don't know that most of it would make the antique show or anything, but I like an eclectic feel to things. So, it works for me. But being an artist, I am constantly creating, working on something. The vehicle will start. The vehicle will start. Yes, we're thinking positively. In Jesus' name, the vehicle will start. We never know which vehicle is going to start when we're going out. And he hit a deer on the way home, or the deer hit him, one or the other, in his little pickup truck. That's our oldest son. And I've got a pile of weeds here. I've been digging up weeds too, and trying to kind of get the yard halfway decent as well. Again, nobody sees it, so between my health not being so good over the years, it started. Yay, I don't know if you can hear his truck. It's an old F-150, like a 92 model, I think, that he bought from a friend of ours, and he just loves it. It's a kind of a turquoisey blue, and it's his baby. You'll probably see him driving by here in a second. Yeah, you're gonna see him, I think. Maybe just a touch of him going by. But anyway, he really likes it. I do not ever suggest, of course, we didn't buy it for him. We've never bought any of our children a vehicle, ever. That's just, we don't do that. Nobody bought me a vehicle. Nobody bought my husband a vehicle. So we ain't doing that for our young'uns either. So anyway, I'm always doing something creative. Nearly every wall in our house is a different color. You guys get glimpses of some of it whenever I am doing shorter videos walking through the house. So that is just really, I've always got some different ideas popping through, and I love Pinterest probably a little too much. On things that I can do to liven up the 100-year-old farmhouse and make it more homey and fun for us to live in. And have always been on a severe budget. So might as well have fun with it, right? I mean, I was raised by grandparents. Cat! Cat thinks I'm a tree. I was raised by grandparents who, grew up in the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression. And, oh, I did it again. I pushed too hard. And they, one of my grandmothers was very, she was a little hoity-toity, maybe. And she wanted new stuff and things to be nice and new-ish. But my great grandmothers were still around, so they were the ones that were born in the early 1900s, and raised their children during the Dust Bowl. And one of them stayed out here on the prairie during the Dust Bowl, and the other one, they went to California. They didn't sell their land; they came back to their land, but they went to California just during the worst of it, and then they came back whenever my grandmother was in high school. She was the one that was just a little more hoity-toity and had like a little bit more expensive taste. And then they started drilling oil out here, oil and gas. And, they kind of came into a little bit of money. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. So you would have never really seen her wearing like used clothes too much or anything like that. Every once in a while, maybe something her sister had bought that she didn't like, but usually she was passing her clothes on to somebody else. And she was teeny tiny, so it didn't take long before she was passing clothes and shoes on to me. So they weren't necessarily whatever was in style at the time, but they worked, But whenever you're raised, Cat, you and I are fixing to have a fight. Whenever you're raised with the whole, reuse, repurpose attitude of the Dust Bowl, and then the whole rest of the world decides that they need to get on a recycle thing. I kind of lost it in there with people because we've been reusing and repurposing forever. The paper bags that everybody started complaining about in the 90s, saying, oh my goodness, we need to go to plastic bags at the store. I'm like, what? It was crazy. Why on earth? Who ever thought that plastic bags were going to be healthier for the quote unquote environment than paper? Paper disintegrates very easily. It can be used for, pet cages and all kinds of things. Good grief, I was a mess over here. The paper can be reused for so many things. And the plastic, I mean, whenever they started saying, well, people need to bring their own bags, which we still don't do out here, but they started complaining about the sea turtles, and I'm sitting here, these stinking plastic bags aren't good for the cattle either. Cattle will eat them. And it just seems ridiculous to me that people would have this attitude of trying to tell everybody else what's best for the environment that they live in. Me trying to do artistic-ish stuff and talk at the same time. Here we go. It's funny whenever I hear people, oh, I can't do art, I can't draw a straight line. You know, or people say that, they can't sew because they can't cut a straight line, and I'm like, who told you? Who told you that? I've heard so many people say it, so I know it's got to be some kind of a programming thing, and I'm just trying to figure out where it comes from. Because who told you you can't sew because you can't cut a straight line? It makes no sense to me. And who told you you can't draw because you can't draw a straight line, or you can't do art because you can't draw a straight line? It's like, do you know how many times we use straight lines in art? I mean, not very often. So, my weed pile is in my road. I mean, it's just dumb to think. To me, I mean, I'm not saying people who say that are dumb, but it's just ridiculous to me for people to think I can't do something because I can't do such and so straight. Like, that has absolutely nothing to do with it. If I want a really straight line, I use a ruler. If I want to cut a really straight line, I again use a ruler and a rotary cutter. So, I mean, if you want a really straight line, you can get one with tools. Tools help you get straight lines. Now, I can freehand fairly straight lines pretty well. I can do that, but it's not necessary. And a majority of this is not straight lines, as you can see. So there's no reason why somebody can't do something like this if it's something that they would enjoy. And it just, everything going on in the world today, we need to find things that are opportunities and things that we enjoy and love and ways to make them a part of our life. Whenever a lot of the people out here on the prairie are artistic. And I think some of it's just we don't have a lot of other things to do. Therefore, music and art are an outlet for us because we don't have the things available that other people have in other places. And so probably could have used a second coat on some of this stuff, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to be fine. What was I saying? Wow, I lost it. I think I'll do red down here. But, oh yeah. It's coming to me, guys. It's coming to me. When the fires happen, we had people that took the burned wood and fence posts and things and made things out of that, like artistically. And then, like took them to craft shows or gave them as gifts to people who lost a lot. And it turned into a blessing, you know? Some people made like crosses out of some of the burnt wood and burnt barbed wire, and just really beautiful memorabilia and pieces of wood. That it's just one of those things that, why not? Why not enjoy, you know, things the best you can and try to turn tragedy into triumph and, you know, turn victim into victorious, and instead of just being survivors, being thrivers in all things that we do. Why not? That's the best way that you get over some of the things, some of the bad, terrible things in this world. Oh, that wasn't quite dry yet, huh? I mean, there's a lot of hard in this world. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say otherwise. It definitely is true. Uh, I mean, that's kind of what the whole thing of Prairie Dust Trail is about, is trying to turn those hardships, weathering the dust storms of life with God's divine help. That's why I always tell you guys, remember, you can weather the dust storms of life with God's divine help, because the Bible doesn't say He will never give us more than we can handle. It says He will never give us more than we can handle without, His help, with His help. We have to have His help. He will give us more than we can handle on purpose so that we continue to rely on Him. Because as soon as we don't rely on Him for help, things go south and we end up with more than we can handle. Look at any of your unbelieving friends, and what are the things that they, struggle with most? What are the things that stress them out most? And it's stuff that if they were relying on their creator, they might actually have, a better hold of, or a better outlook, at least. He doesn't take all of our struggles and all of our trials away. As a matter of fact, He promises we're going to have trials, temptations, things like that make it hard. So we're going to be tempted to complain. We're going to be tempted to look on the not so bright side of things. We're going to be tempted to fight things and be angry and frustrated over the unfairness of the world and lash out at people that we love, especially because we don't have Him. And whenever we have Him, then it becomes a different thing, because, He's got bigger shoulders. He can handle it. We can lash out at Him. We can yell at Him. We can get all upset and out of hand with Him, and He can handle it. It's like no problem for Him. I mean, He went through Job's situation with Him, all the stuff with David. I mean, He did that, and He was fine with it. I'm trying to decide if I want to add any extra. Or if I'm not careful, I can overdo it, do too much. But this is one of those projects that you can almost do too much with, and the more you do, it's almost one of those that the more the better, instead of less is better in so many things in life. This is one of those projects that the more the merrier type of thing. Cat's visiting me again. As long as you're just meowing and purring and rubbing on my leg, we're fine. But you stick those claws in my leg again, we're going to be having problems, Missy. I think she's one of the kittens that was bottle babied in the house by one of our older daughters. I'll wait till that is. Let's see. I think I'm going to put this in between. Well, maybe I should. Yep, that's fine. I saw a TikTok video earlier today. A teacher or an ex-teacher, I don't know if she's still teaching, sharing about how the teaching profession is kind of like a cult. And I did a video back, stitched her, because she had a point, but kind of making the point that most professions do that, not because they're actual cults, not that there couldn't be a little bit of that kind of on purpose, maybe, but generally that's how people tend to be. People are cliquish, and they tend to want. Cat? I mean it. People tend to really want to congregate. It's probably part of the tribal thing, because tribalism is biblical. Cavemanism, not so much. Okay, the tribal thought pattern, tribal communities and stuff. That's completely biblical, and I do think that we kind of go there naturally, and it makes sense that we would, doesn't it? That we would kind of tribalize ourselves, segregate ourselves into tribes, even though we've segregated ourselves for the most part into cities and townships and whatnot. Come on, try to get it in there. Definitely hand. This is so lumpy. So funny. But, if you're in law enforcement, people in law enforcement tend to, oops, I missed a whole spot there with the paint. That figures. So we're going to do this. Yeah, when you're in law enforcement, then, and I mean, part of it is, within the different industries and professions, there's a level of like privacy that needs to be kept for people, is one thing, especially in like as a teacher or a nurse, in the medical profession, the law enforcement profession, the teaching profession. There's a level of privacy that you need to keep for the people that you're serving. Okay. So a parent who is struggling with their child doesn't necessarily want that all out in the, you know, in the world, uh, in the community, Snoopy people and all, you know. So it makes sense that there's some things that teachers need to, you know, be discerning about what they share. And same way with, you know, there's HIPAA laws for law enforcement and medical personnel. So, and then lawyers, you know, and things like that. There's, you know, client confidentiality and things like that. And I'm sure those are things that have always been. Oh, that must be a helicopter. Huh. So, you know, some of it would be that is there's an essence of confidentiality, patient or client confidentiality that you've got to kind of professionalism there. Now this one is not wanting to, there we go, glob up like some of the other ones, but there it is. And then some of it is we are just cliquish creatures. And we get hoity-toity and snooty about, you know, how hard we work. And I've had people do that, you know, get hoity-toity with me about the YouTube channel. And, well, if I ain't pushing a wheelbarrow full of bricks, you know, then I'm not doing real work. And that's funny because I have pushed wheelbarrows full of bricks before. I am capable of it. I'm capable of carrying around 50-pound bags of feed and stuff. But I also have some health issues that I need to take care of myself. Therefore, you know, so that I can take care of my family. And so me going around pushing wheelbarrow full of bricks, my family might not have me with them as long, or they wouldn't have quality time with me because I would be in a lot of pain and my body wouldn't handle it very well. It would break down. Does that mean that, you know, I don't work hard enough or something? No, I don't think any of you guys would say that. It's a different kind of work. Whereas somebody whose body handles pushing around wheelbarrows full of bricks, their body isn't going to want to sit down and, you know, take on a lot of writing like I do with the magazine and newspaper and stuff. Their body, my mother did heavy equipment all of her life, drove heavy equipment. She was heavy equipment operator. She was big and had a constitution I could only dream of. And it was, you know, awesome. She would not have been able to, oops, I'm doing an extra line here that I'm going to have to go back and add over there. She, you know, she hated being in the house. She hated paperwork. She hated, you know, my husband hates paperwork. Sitting at the computer all day doing paperwork, doing taxes, doing bookkeeping, things like that. Not everybody's meant for that. It doesn't make it less work, right? You guys kind of heard me rant about that before. Let's see, I should probably do this. I don't know why I didn't do that over there. So I'll go back and do that. But we need to be understanding with each other, because not everybody, especially in the body, uh, because we're all meant for different things. The ear doesn't look like the eye, and the foot doesn't look like the finger, you know. And God had that in the Bible for a reason, because we tend to click ourselves like that, Well, I'm a teacher. I work from early in the morning to late at night, and then I'm grading papers late, and I'm doing all of these things nobody else understands but other teachers. And that on one hand, you need people who do understand what you're going through. You do. So you need that. On the other hand, whenever you start getting prideful about it and saying your work is harder than anybody else's work and your work is more valuable than anybody else's work, then you're getting into a pridefulness. And that's when you're in danger of getting that cult mentality. And we all need to worry about that. I mean, I'm a homeschool mom, and homeschoolers do this. Oh my goodness, homeschoolers do this. Big time homeschoolers do this. Of thinking that they're better than homeschoolers who do things other way. It's hard not to have a mentality of, I'm doing what's best for my children. And I've been accused a couple of times of somebody's, because I'm like, I put a lot of thought into homeschooling, and it was usually out of defensiveness, because people were picking on me. Well, I don't know why you're homeschooling, blah 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 blah. And I would lash back out and say, I put a lot of thought and a lot of prayer into the education of my children. And then they get defensive and they are like, well, do you think I didn't? Well, if you're getting mad at me just because I'm not doing it the normal way that everybody else does, or what you chose, are you, then I'm sitting here, okay, did you do it just because everybody else was expecting that of you? And because it was the normal way and because it was the easy way out? Because that's what it sounds like you're trying to say. They don't like that, of course. Let's see. I don't know. What do I want? Yeah, I guess I'm going to do. So, anyway, I mean, we all do it, and I try to catch myself whenever I start getting too defensive, and I try not to get offensive, and I try not to be judgmental, because I know some wonderful teachers. And my husband and I were both public schooled, and neither one of us were impressed. We didn't like it. We didn't enjoy it. We didn't, and I know some people have wonderful memories of school. We don't. That doesn't mean we're wrong or that there's anything wrong with us. It's just a fact. And if you had good memories and you're wanting your children to have those good memories, and that's why you're doing what you're doing, then power to you. I'm not sitting here trying to tell everybody else that they need to be homeschooling. Now, if you're complaining about the public school system, if you're complaining about some of the things that are happening, I'm like, this is a no-brainer option. And if you're saying, oh, I could never do that because of this or that, well, then I'm going to try to help you overcome those objections, because that's who I am. It's like, okay, if you see this as a good alternative, but you don't think you can, why don't you think you can? Is it finances? Well, do you need a budget? Do you need, what do you need to be doing differently? Do you need some help there on that? We had to sacrifice in order to be able to home educate our children. It wasn't easy. It's not because my husband's rich. He's blue collar service worker. He is at the constant beck and call of whatever's going on with the grid. Um, and, things like that. So it's just like, it's not, we had to work at it. We had to work on it. It wasn't easy. I've had people say, and this one comes up a lot, oh, I can never homeschool. I don't have enough patience. And I just laugh at that one. And because half the time it's a school teacher that's telling me that. And I'm like, well, I don't know how you have the patience to educate 15 to 20 children in one room the same age. And they'll always correct me and say, oh no, I have 25 or 30 children. And I'm like, well, you're proving my point even more there. How do you have the patience 7 days a week to be educating or attempting to educate a bunch of somebody else's children who have got different morals and values potentially than you, different lifestyles than you in your home, and you've got all of those children the exact same age in your classroom, and you're telling me you don't have the patience to homeschool? Excuse me while I laugh, because that doesn't make any sense to me. That's the way it is. It does not make any sense to me. And why on earth they think that should, and then the ones who don't homeschool, our oldest came up with she had a school teacher saying, well, I could never homeschool my children. And she's like, wait. I can't remember how she said it. You educate other people's children, and then you're sitting here telling me you don't have the patience to spend time with your own. And the teacher, thankfully, happened to see the point and was like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I said that. And that's when I really started thinking, we're programmed to say these things. I don't know why, but we are so programmed. It does not make sense that we would say these things. But we do. And we all do. Don't we? Boy, that was a wonky leaf. So, anyway, I would just caution everybody to think about these things before you say them, and think about what industry you are in and what silly things you think or believe or maybe even say based on, some of the craziness. Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to be able to do for right now. Hopefully the audio turned out. Wow, 45 minutes. That's pretty amazing. I'll definitely show some after pictures in the community.